We're going to start the day off with the librarian of Beth Fireworks.
So our budget that we've presented is fairly similar to last year's. There is a little bit of increase. Some of that is due to the change in minimum wage that just changed staffing costs. Otherwise, we've kept things fairly similar. We've sort of combined a couple items just to make things a little bit easier for tracking and that sort of thing. So, for example, rather than having office material and supplies and computer material and supplies separate, we've combined those because most of those, we're using things multiple ways. You're buying paper and using them for different tasks and that sort of thing. It makes it a little bit easier. We also had some grant money come in. It actually came in late last year, but we deferred it to spend it this year, which allowed for some of the larger items for computer maintenance and repairs and equipment maintenance and repairs, because that allowed us some new technology items that we were able to purchase through provincial funding. We've also included in this budget a line that we don't often include for building maintenance and supplies, and that is for some paint that we're hoping to have done on the main floor of the library. There's a few places that need to be patched, and then just a fresh coat of paint to brighten everything up with the new. It's been busy, and so we just think that would, yeah.
I apologize for the delay on the live streaming, but we are now, just to inform everyone. Again, I apologize, but we are online now. Thank you.
Yep, so just to put a fresh coat of paint, I had some discussions with Shauna as well, just to see if we could coordinate that together. And I think that's kind of everything. I don't know if you have any questions.
Through the chair, one of the items that I questioned was the legal. I think some matters the council is aware of in camera, so things may be necessary. So I know Betsy and I can review the board, but I believe it's in the best interest of these happening in camera.
Yeah, when we had presented the budget, we knew there were some ongoing things last year, and so we, rather than change it, we wanted to wait until we were sure through council that everything had been resolved to your satisfaction for the coming year.
Through the chair, I thought we were resolving the
Through the chair, we resolved one issue, and council wants clarification on why I was saying this. We can go in camera. We have some other items related to salaries that I'd like to go in camera with later, so I can explain that in closed session.
Okay, thank you.
So right now we are approximately 2% increase from the actual 2017 budget, not considering the fact that there's a $4,500 for legal fees. I think we have to deduct that really off your amount. So that would be about 1 or 2%, which is pretty good, I would say.
Through the chair, it's also budgeted in 2017 financial year.
Okay. Yeah.
There is no expenditure in 2017 as the amount that councillor was discussing. This is through construction.
So the difference is the paint and the wage salaries went up.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. Any other questions?
She had budgeted 1,000 for and you spent 2,000.
Yeah, I think that one came from grant money that had come in last year. And I think part of it, if you look, so this was part of our reasoning for wanting to recombine some of them. So if you look at office material, computer material, and computer maintenance and equipment maintenance, when you total them up, we didn't spend overall those amounts, but it's sometimes hard, you know, some things can fall into two different budgets, and so some of it was just a placement thing. Like, so for example, we had budgeted for computer maintenance and repairs, we'd budgeted $3,300 and only spent $1,000. So the two, computer maintenance and computer material and supplies, sort of balance out as a whole, but I think it was just where things were categorized last year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
So through the chair, we'll just sort of go through them the way they do in the jail, if that's all right with council. Taxation right-of-ways, the government has changed the rate for taxation for right-of-ways for the last 2 years, so it's been significant. We used to get $3,077 for many years. Is there a question? Yes. It was on, but I guess she just wasn't close enough. Okay. So to reiterate, taxation right of way, the rates have gone up in the provinces now in the mode of changing them every year. We used to get $3,077 for as long as I can remember. Last year there was an increase, and this year the taxation's going up again. Heads and beds is the same. We've seen an increase in our own PF. Around the north, there are not too many that have seen an increase. The province keeps saying that they're going to start clawing that back. We have not seen that yet. So when that will affect us is unknown at this time. So we're just grateful for what we get. Provincial offenses is revenue generated, so this is our best estimate. And gas tax revenue, $134,000 in 2018. Council's budget. I will be bringing back to council in the near future a reconsideration to review the salaries and benefits for the next council. There is a bylaw that says it shall be reviewed within 6 months of the upcoming council. Given the change this year in the dates of the election, that bylaw will need to be reviewed just because the timing is no longer appropriate or applicable. So it will be coming back to council sooner than later, so that if we're in a lame duck position, then we have the bylaw set in place for the next term. So council's pretty straightforward. We already know who's going where this year as far as travel goes, so we've been able to incorporate that into the budget this year rather than unknowns. So it's fairly status quo, other than you'll see some movement amongst council members as to who's going and who's not going to conferences. And we've cleaned up a bit of the recognition. So here we've got the Christmas party and some staff recognition. And here we've got the seniors breakfast and any other miscellaneous that council may wish that isn't specifically related to staff. Election salaries, that speaks for itself, $14,000. So there are some salaries for the poll workers. We need to buy materials, training and development. That's for staff. We're going the end of the month for a financial session. And this is also to cover any costs that may be involved with poll clerks. And election other, rather than having 100 accounts broken down, that's what we expect for software and what have you. Housing, this is Randy's. I will preempt this by saying that when you start looking at the salaries for all of the departments that Mr. Barnes is responsible for, it's very difficult to look at variances. It's the same amount of employees doing a variety of different work. So what we've done for Public Works is we've looked at 3 years. We've done a rolling average. And so it's our best estimate other than you'll see it in cemeteries where we might expect that crew will do their work. Unfortunately, there's no real signs to it unless we have a specific project such as the cemetery this year to be able to identify those costs. We still have one more item that will not affect the budget other than presentation, is we're going to have a look at the sewer and water salary component because our people still do some of that work. And we're going to have to go back and look and further break down the public works salary. And Mr. Barnes and I will do that before this comes to council for final presentation. But as I say, it will have no impact on the overall budget whatsoever. So, Mr. Barnes?
The housing budget is fairly low, with the exception of the building maintenance. Includes some extra money this year, this building in particular. And other than resolve, they're starting to age. Some of our fluorescent light fixtures are starting to fail. And so I propose this year that as these fixtures fail, rather than repairing valves and connectors and things like that, we just do new fixtures and use them for 70 or 80% of their efficiency. So that's sort of the result as far as what the money is spending this particularly this project.
I wonder, Randy, if, without much knowledge on this, $25,000 to me should probably be on their capital budget because it is no longer maintenance, but replacement of the whole area. And $25,000 is a lot of money, so are we putting it in the wrong places?
My understanding is this was not for just LED lighting. It was for other building maintenance and repairs. And I think last year there was a door that didn't get done. We also have some work that has to be done at Service Ontario that's included in there. So it's not just $25,000 on LED fixtures. You are correct, Mr. Mayor, that if that was the case, it should be capital.
Thank you.
Administration. If that's too small, just let me know. Penalties and taxes. As in every year, we are doing our level best to collect all of the arrears that are owed to the municipality. And while last year our penalty revenue was double, it's our anticipation that that is not going to happen this year due to the write-offs that you're going to see in the bottom half of the screen. And again, we continue to diligently chase our arrears now, turn them over to collections. With the new regulations where we can now register properties after 2 years, that will also minimize that amount. So we've increased it over last year's revenue, but we certainly didn't want to go to the actual. Penalties on water, same idea. Interest earned, this is interest earned on investments. There's also a net effect. I will tell council that we did quite well in our investments last year. You will see it in the financial statements. We suffered a net loss on our investments due to a change in value of the portfolio. So when we suffer that, it impacts this line because this is where it comes from. General government, we had a unique event last year in the fact that we have a legal issue, and we went after the other company to pay those legal costs as per the agreement, and we received payment for that, and we also received payment for a project that we did or a study that we did in relation to that case. So that's why the general revenues are significantly higher for 2017, and we do not expect to see that repeated in 2018. Other revenue, we've not budgeted for this in the past. This year we have. We charge an administration fee to NWMO for the services that we provide. We've been doing that since we've been in this process. So now we're actually recording the revenue. Trailer lot rent, they all stay the same. Big change, obviously, is municipal building rental. Council's aware of the vacancies that we have. We've picked up some of that. We now have an agreement with Service Ontario for 40 Manitou that is workable. This number is an allowance for doubtful accounts for taxation, so we will draw on that to balance the budget based on the tax arrears that we are going to be writing off, and you'll see those down below here. Sorry?
Question on the,
Oh, up here?
the actual, not actual, yeah, the actual. So we saved, what, 70,000, we got $70,000 more in revenue. Does that go into reserves?
We have it through the chair. We have a bylaw that says, not this specifically, but overall, we have a bylaw, two of them. One states that 50% of any surplus will go into a reserve for tax appeals, and a second reserve is the other 50% of any surplus in any given year will go towards infrastructure improvements.
Okay, so through a chair, can you explain to me then the TSF revenue fund?
That's a transfer from the revenue fund to reserves. So we have an allowance set up for doubtful account for tax write-offs or accounts that we expect we may not collect. So we are going to draw down on that this year rather than tax the ratepayer for some of those write-offs. It's money we have in basically a savings account.
Okay, so the money that we got more money than we were supposed to, that will show somewhere else?
It will show in a final audit adjustment in a transfer to reserves, correct.
Okay, thank you.
The auditors are still finalizing our working papers, so unfortunately I don't have that number for you. Administration salaries and benefits. The only significant change to this department is that Public Works Admin Assistant was split between administration and Public Works. That was a holdback from quite some time ago. That's no longer relevant. It was done primarily because they were doing some administrative work relating to water and water billings and whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, it's no change to the budget, and we've allocated that salary now where it belongs, which is primarily administration. Our bank service fees continue to escalate at an astronomical rate. This is everything from credit card transactions, ATM fees, whatever. We're going to do some homework this year and bring it back to council for the user fees for 2019. Some municipalities charge a surcharge for certain transactions. So we're going to look at some and prepare a policy or a working paper for council's consideration whether they want to do that. The flip side of that is, and the argument that as a treasurer I've always had, is that sometimes credit card is the only means that people have for paying their taxes. And if we further implement a fee on that, we may not get those taxes. So it is a bit of a yin and yang, but it's certainly something that we will bring forward to council for consideration, because $30,000 is getting significant for that. We don't have any other bank charges other than this. So it's high. We don't pay any bank fees. Yeah. Significant. And it's escalating because more and more people are getting points and paying by, it's a cashless society now, you know, so that's the cost of doing business. And it's also, in here is also the, some of the airport stuff is in there too.
it's really a high cost, but I think in today's world, we don't have any choice. And I'm not sure whether about the legality of charging extra for using credit cards. It may be the fact that we may have to increase user fees instead.
Yeah, there are, through the chair, there are municipalities that do, or they say you can't pay your taxes through credit card, but we're going to do some homework and we'll bring it back when we start talking about user fees so that, you can have a good open discussion on that matter outside of budget. At this point, we don't have a user fee, we don't have a policy, so we continue to allow people to do, what they've been doing for a number of years now. But like I say, the cost continues to escalate every year.
We may be just transferring the money from bank service charges over to uncollectible.
It's a possibility. That's what I say. We're going to prepare we're going to do some working papers and bring it back to council, and at the end of the day, it'll be council's decision whether they feel they can endorse it. But I do believe it's something that we need to at least explore to see whether it's viable or suitable for Manitowoc. Taxes written off. So this is significantly higher than last year. We have a number of properties that we know will be put up for sale this year. We will finalize the tax sale process in 2018. There are a couple of them that we had agreements with. We did have an allowance set up for them. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, they were no longer able to meet that obligation for one reason or another. Bankruptcies also have an effect on here. So these two numbers are the taxes written off, and here we have an allowance for doubtful accounts this council approved last year. So overall, it's almost double. If you recall up here, we have an allowance for doubtful accounts. We're bringing that into play as a revenue to mitigate some of this. And again, as I stated, we continue to work hard to collect arrears. Office materials and supplies, I've put in this year for a folding machine. We're spending more and more time folding documents. We're folding tax bills, water bills, did you know notices, forecasters every month. The staff time that's spent doing that task will far be saved in a year, 2 years to mitigate that cost. So the folding machine is actually only about $10,000, not $25,000. And it looks like we might be able to get two. The second one will only be $500 due to a mishap. The supplier told us that we had a machine that would work, and it wouldn't. And the supplier is now trying to give us a fantastic deal on the second model too, so it's not on his floor. So we will probably take advantage of that. So with council's approval, we're going to put this upstairs, and we'll save an incredible amount of staff time. We have some computers we have to buy this year. Some of them are no longer capable of handling our system. Mine died a week ago, was not pretty, no power, no nothing, so it's time to replace some of those computers. Hydro's a guess. Here we've got door openers for the fire hall that need to be done this year. Owen, you can probably address that one, or Randy, either one of you.
Sure. The farthest 3 bay doors are the originals from late 60s, and they're making some funky noises and parts are problems. So we had a guy introduce a maintenance, and he recommended replacement. So we're looking at 3 doors. I think labor and material revenue is about 6,000. Around 6,000 over and above the other building maintenance.
Legal, that's self-explanatory. Council's aware through several in-camera conversations why this money may be required this year. I think those are my big ones. Training and travel. I have not decreased that this year, even though we didn't spend the money last year. There were some conferences that, as with the multiple hats I wear that I generally go to, that I didn't make last year, so that's part of why we were under budget. We're making a concerted effort to start cross-training some of our staff in the building. So under administration, we're sending Jolene to other courses. Chris is also getting cross-trained on the financial end of things and is starting to attend sessions where relevant to finance. It's a fine line between finance and administration when it comes to zone meetings. So we're looking at the agenda to see if there's enough topics on an agenda to warrant sending individuals. But Jolene is continuing with the election training. Chris is already slotted for a couple of the Treasurers Forum at the end of the year, some tax sessions that happen in Thunder Bay. So we're continuing to move forward with that. Sure.
Yeah. It's an administration budget, and both Margaret and I have been working on a strategic plan, or pardon me, the official plan document. We were hoping to have that done. It's been a long-term project. There's been, again, substantial change by the province on the way planning appeals are handled and by who. We just went to training on the new process. The consultant we're actually dealing with was at that training. And with the election coming this fall, he suggested that we wait and bring the plan back to the new council. So we're continuing to work on the official plan, and it would be something that after the election we would return to council with official plan and zoning bylaw.
So if council recalls, part of the job description for the deputy clerk was there was a long-term plan that we would eventually, succession planning, start training on zoning and planning with that position. So that's already started as well. No, it was a part of a union agreement. Yeah. They get their boot allowance. Yes. Yeah. Sorry?
On the previous, there was a $50,000 legal, but it shows as refunded, should not go into.
No, the refunded is more
Revenue?
to this one.
Pardon me?
The refunded is a remark for me.
Okay.
If you look at the budget versus actual,
Okay.
we got significant legal fees going back to a number of years, actually, from Suncor last year. So that number is a little misleading. The budget to actual is a little misleading. We spent more than 22 last year, but it netted out as a result of a refund from Suncor for legal fees.
But even though we were refunded, we still expect to spend $50,000 this year in 2018?
I would expect, yes, that's
Okay.
a possibility. Council's aware of some of the in-camera stuff that's going on.
Yep.
We're still dealing with, we've got several issues on the table. So legal does not come cheap.
Thank you.
Under fire budget, most of it's status quo. There is a couple of changes that I'll speak with. One is under 2161,505 memberships. There's an increase there, and that's where we put the fee for the Code Red program, which we talked about earlier in the year. We're well on the way of being able to implement Code Red. The next little step is to get the stuff integrated into our new website, and will be available to the community once we launch the new website. We're kind of hoping for early May, and to take advantage of Emergency Management Planning Week and use that media as a chance to launch and get the public involved in the Code Red system. The other item of change under there is at the bottom, professional consulting fees, and that's the fee for the review, rewrite, and training on the new municipal emergency plan, which we had training yesterday on the new, or not training, it was actually a review of the proposed document and the format. We started on that. We'll get comments back to the consultant, and we're hoping for a June implementation of that plan. If there's any other questions.
Did you touch on this one?
I did, that's the emergency plan.
Good with this one? Health, these are our givens. We have both of these. We have not received the ambulance yet, so. Oh, okay, okay, I'll come back, I'll finish this page because it's small and then we'll go back. Ambulance service, we've estimated, based on last year's increase. We have not seen the final figures for the ambulance yet, so if the budget is approved before we have that number, it's not going to be significantly different. I'm fairly confident in that. Cemetery lot sales, this number is actually higher if you look at budget to actual. Again, there's planned work that sorry, I'm speaking on your behalf, Mr. Barnes. Gift of the gab.
There is a change in 6111 salaries. Cemetery committee met in the fall. First time I looked at it, and the committee asked that some of the sidewalks and property roads were walking back at the cemetery being converted. There was a money there to do that.
Yeah, we, there is, but salaries and benefits are confidential, so they were all blacked out last year too.
How do we come up with salaries on a situation like that? Is it a percentage of?
Well, that's what I had said at the beginning of the meeting. So for Public Works, it's the same people doing a variety of work.
Yeah.
So in this case, I know what the total budget for Public Works is. I take out the knowns. So Mr. Barnes, the administrative assistant, the maintenance person, all stay with Department 3100. But the actual crew itself is dispersed in many, many tasks. So in this case, I know what he wants to spend at the cemetery. I'll also back that out, and then we'll average the rest based on 3 years' history to the other, hydrants, water, sewer, garbage. It's our guess based on historical costs.
So in this instance, then, materials is very minimal. Most of it is salaries, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of work to be done out there, according to the committee. And for the members of council who may not recall, Councillor Liev was appointed to that committee, so he was also in attendance at that meeting. Any other questions here? Allocated to that, yes.
It's, through the chair, it's basically a facelift. We got those stones, some of them needs to be re-leveled and reseeded, I guess. Basically, that's what it is.
Yeah, we're going to make an effort to meet with the cemetery committee probably twice a year. They were correct that they haven't met in a very long time, and were adamant that if we were going to continue that, they were going to resign. It's a good committee to have because we don't necessarily go out there, and see the issues that people who have loved ones in there may see. So it's a good exercise. As Mr. Cranny indicated, I missed the whole bottom of this page.
This is the bylaw enforcement budget, And there is a couple changes I just want to highlight for council. Under training and development, there's an increase this year, more provincial downloading, if you will, based on the Rental Tenancy Act, Landlord Tenancy Act, being downloaded to municipalities July 1st of this year. The municipality will now be responsible for building condition complaints from tenants, and will have to handle those. So both Marcel and I went and took the training. I think it was last week. We were in Thunder Bay for a couple of days for that training and getting up to speed on the requirements and what's required of the municipality. As well, council is aware that in our strategic plan, property standards was identified as a desirable thing for the community. So we are going to be entering into the process over property standards as well. And it's a lengthy process. There's a fair amount of public consultation involved and striking the standard, if you will, for the community. But we'll be back to council shortly with information about the residential rental property component, which we will have in place for July 1st, and the work to be done on formulating a community-wide property standards bylaw. So that's one change, and that's why the training increased. Well,
Excuse me, Counselor. Would you use your mic, please, so that, because we are live streaming?
Good point. Yeah. Good point. We're learning on that, did you know, and what's appropriate to put in there and what we want to share. But no, that's a very good point. Yeah, very good point.
Other items that we are working on right now in the bylaw department and we hope to complete shortly. One is a chip reader. More and more residents are getting computer chips put into their animals in lieu of dog tags. So it's a fairly inexpensive system, and it gives us a national registry. So even if somebody is visiting Manitouwadge with a dog and the dog is chipped, we'll be able to track and get back to the owner in a timely fashion. So that's one initiative we're going with. We are having issues with dumpsters and the use of dumpsters and the inappropriate use of dumpsters mainly. So we are looking at purchasing a trail cam as well, so that we can track and do some enforcement on some of these problems. So we will be working on that initiative as well. So that's things that are covered in the bylaw budget.
Ms. Granny, you mentioned the fact that people are using chips instead of dog tags. Is that not illegal in our town?
No, it's not. We do have a bylaw that says tags, dog tags, but it's becoming a very popular means of people are doing it. They're buying dog tags as well. Some aren't. But when we sat down and evaluated the whole system and the service we provide, what do we want to be doing? We're not in the dog tag business. We're in the dog catching and getting back to the rightful owner. And the quickest method and the most common is becoming the chip, which we don't sell. That's a service they get from the vet. But when we get the reader, then we get access to the national database that allows us to track and return those animals.
What are we saying to our residents that they don't need dog tags?
We're going to be coming back to council with this discussion. Right now, we're getting animals. We can't even tell if they have a chip right now, and get them back. If we catch an animal and it takes 2 or 3 days to find the owner, sometimes there's a cost associated with that. So I think we have to look at the big picture. And if we can get them back to the owner the same day, there's a big advantage to the municipality.
And I agree with that. It's just the fact that, to me, those are two separate items. Chips, to me, are becoming necessary because people use that chip. But dog tag is a bylaw within our town, so I think we have to keep that going at the same time. Unless it comes back to council for council
Oh,
deliberation.
we're certainly not telling residents at this time that they don't need a dog tag. No, we'll have to come back and make that formal, but in the big picture, we're not in the dog tag business, and that's, so the models, we have to look at the model we're using and try and make it more effective. Yes. We are, and we're still doing that. We're selling dog tags today, as a fact. You know, we're still in that mode, and we still have that. But we need to. I'm just looking at making the transition and being able to put that into service.
Done with bylaw?
Transportation, certain one hundred budget line is, I guess, it's probably, public works major budget. 61,245 is, building maintenance and supplies. There's been some discussion back and forth with myself, as far as, that budget and, the doors, public works, maybe one overhead door, I think, for 12 last year. Well aged, had some damage over the years, and had some minor repairs, and just a point where it was extremely energy efficient. And we discussed whether we put that into operating budget or capital budget, as we did for operating basic maintenance. Which we have done over the years, for ice centers.
And through the chair, I might add to that, that in discussions with council, with the auditors at year end, the determination may be made that it does get capitalized, which is a paper transaction. So even if it's here, if the auditors feel strongly enough that it needs to be included in our assets, it's easy enough to make that entry.
No real changes, from
Question? I see spare tires and rim unit. Is that for pickups or?
Well, that's our grader.
Grader?
Our grader doesn't have a
A smear.
spare tire. So, I'm hoping this year that we can save that money through the operation of the spare tire for that unit, probably around $25.
Okay.
It doesn't have one spare tire.
And having downtime.
What we ended up doing, we rented the unit, we actually ended up renting two units, because there were just need to have the work session, the unit worked, fairly well. It ran for 2 weeks, ran did take the cost total to around, almost to the 5 foot depth level. Didn't do 100% of the job that I was hoping that they were going to do. They probably do 50% of the job. It made it quite easy to dig the area. We went out and did actually with the backhoe and dig the area, but there was no frost in there. There was literally 6 or 8 inches of frost right over the water main. We broke that up just with the backhoe, we did move the water, so we were able to do it for 4 hours and 50 days. And got the water main away, saw that water main, and that after we did the digging, probably over the thought process was that it was going to run for that period of time and actually thaw the water and that didn't happen. In speaking to the company that I got the machine from, they indicated just a little bit of the they really didn't have that kind of time. So they were able to get that water going. They were really concerned that over the water main for us to see that intersection. And it possibly affect the water main. I'm still in discussion with people, myself and Mr. Crane discussed a little bit, and discussed with manufacturers, suppliers, and I'm not 100% convinced yet that that's the thing to do. We've seen it on the capital for this year. We already doing a discussion with council on the city. I'm not 100% convinced that that's the thing. I'm not saying I won't go back at a later date and maybe discuss it again. At this point in time, if we do 100% of the wall, because it's significant expense. I haven't convinced myself it's on
And if I may, in any one frozen incident, where you use that fly machine, did it lengthen the time it took to actually repair the rate? In other words, by putting that machine in, you wait 4 days for it to thaw, whereas if you took it in the backhoe, it would have been a 1-day operation.
Yes and no. It does, it takes a longer period of time if you calculating hours or calendar days, but it's time of no labor spent. So the thought process of doing this was, why would it be, you put down an area that you know you have to do a big repair. Presently in Ontario, we have to use Ontario One Call, and they have up to 10 days to do an appearance if we did. Even for our own property, north of street side, we have to do appearances to Ontario One Call. So if we identify an area that needs to have a day, whether it be a frozen water line or a broken water line or a sewer line flash trap, we could put that heater on the same day we apply for our permits. So while we're waiting for the permits, we can't put something in the ground for the equipment. While we're waiting for the permits, the heater could run. I thought it would make it very easy for us to do the rock record that we do. This year, 8 years frost. So that heater could run through that time while we're waiting for the permits and clearances, with no having our manpower, set as everybody knows, they're very small group. Typically don't plan things on the year start stage because that takes away 2 of our crews. So the idea was that, like I say, yes, it does take longer, but it's days of no spend time.
Councillor, if it's related to that equipment, I think the conversation should be taken during capital, which is capital equipment, So we can go on with this and then we'll move on to capital. I'm sorry that we have to do that, but it's just a process.
Through the chair, that equipment is not in capital.
Okay. But that question can still be raised at capital
Yeah.
fund. So I may have missed something here, but under road material, we've got a significant increase there of $18,000 compared to what we spent last year. Is this pavement or?
That is coal patch, and as well we put the, street line painting on that now as well. We didn't buy any coal patch last year. We didn't buy it, we did the asphalt and such. We still haven't decided what product we're gonna buy this year, we need to be coal patch, or it'll either be, coal patch or recycle that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The line repainting, is that a yearly thing? I noticed the painting that was done last year didn't seem to last.
Typically, we're not really, because of our winters, we have a lot of sand on the roads. Sand taking typically last that long, and just trying to stop. So, yeah, that's really what we want. We want those really be effectively covered.
But I think in saying that, the line painting that we did this last year, we're using the same paint as the MTO is using right now. And I understand that the grade of paint has been reduced. In other words, it's a lot lesser quality of paint. So maybe we should look at, if we do it again, maybe to upgrade the paint. But in saying that, the contractor, we can also recommend that he uses a better grade. Thank you. Councillor?
Through the chair, I can address that partially, and I believe that the rest of the managers who have tried to retain staff this year will agree with my comments. We are having a difficult time attracting people, period. We put numerous posts out last year for casuals, and we didn't get applicants, or applicants were not suitable for a variety of reasons. One of the requirements we have is they must have a driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, you can't work on the roads crew. It's certainly not for lack of effort, and part of the struggles that we had last year with Public Works specifically was we could not get people who had minimal qualifications apply. Anybody else want to add to that? No, it has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with not being able to get suitable candidates, because the money was available last year. We had people who were not at work for a variety of reasons, and we could not get qualified candidates.
Some of it is, pardon me, Brad, Martin, some of it is injury and illness problems as well. If people are off, and we hire a temporary candidate who maybe doesn't produce the same sort of skill set, so we get stuff done at a slower pace, at the same time. Yeah, no, understood.
Yeah, no, we promoted from within, or I shouldn't say promoted from within. In a union environment, we have posted, and we have awarded some of those postings to the casuals that we have, and they're currently filling those vacancies. We have one casual now, and it's taken us a long time to get those casuals. The expectation is some of those people are going to return to work fairly soon. We will then have our full complement of casuals that will help backfill specifically Public Works, which is the department that really struggled last year due to lack of resources. But I know Shauna and Mr. Barnes have both put out ads and have tried to work jointly to get casuals to backfill those positions, because we could have them working 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, if we had the candidates.
I'll come back to you.
Okay, my one point on that is that maybe instead of casual, we'll make that one position permanent. That would be more attractive to individuals out there to put their name for a job if you know it's permanent. So the cost of that, I don't know. That'll have to come from.
So through the chair, that is one of the proposals that we are going to present to council. It is Department 31. We don't necessarily need to discuss it in camera because it is a new position. So Randy, I can either take it or you can take it. Okay, so it's been no surprise to anybody because we've talked about this on numerous occasions, more specifically with my position and Mr. Cranny's positions and the hats that we wear, but it's also a huge issue also with Public Works. The changing legislation and the paperwork that comes along with those jobs. Years ago, Public Works Superintendent certainly was a boots on the ground position. I can say that without any reservation that is no longer the case for that position. We have included in this budget a proposal that we hire I'm not going to say mid-management, but it will be a non-union position that will be responsible for supervising the Public Works crew. And Mr. Barnes, feel free to interject at any time. We don't want it to be a union position because there are certain administrative responsibilities that we want that position to have. We have a good draft on a working job description. We do need to meet with the union because there are some crossovers that we need to discuss with them before we post it. We've put in the budget where we think the position will be paid. We don't expect it to be higher, it could be lower. The difficulty, again, that we have is retaining and getting qualified people to come to our community. We've seen it job over job over job. So hopefully we can retain someone that will have Mr. Barnes in the office most of the day, most days. There should be no need for him to generally be in the workforce anymore. This position will be responsible for, under some direction from Mr. Barnes, for supervising the work of the crew, given direction, making sure things are done appropriately, leaving Mr. Barnes to do the paperwork, the reports, the policies, the bylaws that sadly need addressed, and there's just no time.
So, Margaret, by creating this new position, we are not looking at reducing the labor force, right?
Correct.
So, but in continuance to what the discussion was, maybe what we should be looking at, right now we're looking at casuals, and casuals are hard to get for the simple reason that they don't know when they're going to work, they don't know how many shifts or hours per week is available to them. Therefore, it's hard to get anybody like that. But because we have a lot of arrears, especially in our road conditions, like pavement, would it be easier, or would it not be easier to hire on a contract basis on the 6 months or 5 months, for example, for the summer, to do a single job, as in to replace pavement that has been degraded over the past 3 years? We haven't done any work with that. But I think it would be easier if we were to do that on a contract basis. People would be aware that the job is 40 hours a week, for example, 5 months, for example. Therefore, you know, to get our roads back up to, I shouldn't say standard because we're well below standard.
Through the chair, the only problem with that is it would be unionized position. what Mr. Barnes needs right now is someone more in a supervisor capacity. I'm not negating the fact that certainly more bodies will get more work done. But what we need is that supervisory capacity right now so Mr. Barnes can actually be in the office doing the things that need to be done. We could do what you're suggesting. Single job will not work for his department. It's a huge department that does a variety of tasks throughout the year. If we were to say, this is your sole responsibility is emptying the dumpsters, for an example, in a job description, that's all they would be doing because that's what the job would be rated on. What we need is a position dedicated but a works employee, if we're going to go down that road, that can do every task assigned to them. So single job, repaving, paving streets or whatever, doesn't really help you much.
Well, sorry, but this position could also be under contract and not as a unionized job. It is a.
It is.
Could be a
It's
contract
unionized
basis.
work. It's unionized work.
Well, it does to a certain extent, but I'm thinking of the equipment that we bought last year for patch repairs. And the way we're going, and this, in the summertime, there's always, besides the sickness and the injuries that our staff is incurring, there's also vacation to think about. Therefore, we certainly won't have a full workforce. And falling so far behind on our pavement, it's just creating a concern. So that if we hire someone, contractor, to do paving, it's quite a bit more expensive than it is if we were to do it ourselves.
Through the chair, I can make a suggestion too that this new position that we're looking at creating will free up our lead hand significantly, because currently the lead hand is trying to manage some of those tasks. That would put another boots on the ground kind of person. We can certainly come back and visit this after we've reviewed the capital. Another option might be is see if we can get that individual that we're hoping that we can retain and see how we manage the summer. And if not, then it's definitely an item that we can revisit for the 2019 budget. Just some options for you to consider. The lead hand is a unionized position, so there's certain things that the lead hand's not responsible for, nor is the lead hand. With all due respect, if we're going to start talking individuals and performance and what they do, I would prefer to go in camera.
Yes, Councilman?
I'm not changing topic a minute here. When I see sidewalk maintenance here or when in the capital, sidewalk maintenance,
There isn't a specific line for sidewalk maintenance.
our sidewalks, what we have, are not very good at all. And I don't, okay, it's somewhere hidden in here. How much is going to be done on sidewalk maintenance? So I'm asking.
I have to give you them where they don't have that information. I don't have to
But there is plans.
There is plans this year to replace some of our sidewalks. Inside the paving floor sidewalks that we have right now,
Thank you.
Any other questions on this?
We can. I have another item that I want to bring to closed session as well, so meets the same criteria. I should have a resolution. I think you have the resolution as well.
So we have one here?
Yes.
But there's two items?
Same item.
Same item.
It's staffing.
So we can do that, and I'm assuming that the staff then can have a coffee break during that time?
Some of the staff will need to be here, and actually none of it is very confidential. Staff are all aware of the matters that are going to, maybe not.
I'm just trying to give them a coffee
No,
break,
you're
that's
correct.
all.
Pardon me? Yeah, we're going to turn the live streaming off. We will have to turn the live streaming off.
Okay. Okay. So moved by Councillor Rule, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Whereas Section 239, bracket 4, the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, C25, provided that before holding of a meeting or part of a meeting that is to be closed to the public, a municipality or a local board or committee of either of them shall state by resolution the fact of holding of the closed meeting and the general nature of the matter to be considered at the closed meeting. Now therefore, be it resolved that this meeting is hereby closed to the public, as the subject matter being discussed falls under the following section. Section 239, bracket 2, bracket B, personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee. All in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Pardon?
Well,